Good morning, and welcome everyone to the third California Broadband Council meeting of 2025. My name is Jared Johnson, the Deputy State Chief Information Officer and Chief Deputy Director of the California Department of Technology, chairing today's California Broadband Council on behalf of State CIO Leanna Bailey Crimmins. Today's meeting is the Council's third meeting of the year. As you know, the Broadband for All program consists of several different coordinated initiatives and efforts aimed at closing the digital divide and fostering digital equity throughout California. Many of these initiatives have transitioned from planning to implementation and have significant accomplishments to share with council members and members of the public. As the federal administration implements its policy priorities, we have seen changes affecting key California programs that we have collectively planned to leverage over the last few years. You will hear about some of the potential impacts of these policy changes and how we are planning and preparing to continue our digital equity work regardless of federal policy changes. As we navigate these shifts, we must leverage the diverse and robust ecosystem we have built, highlight and champion the work of our existing investments and programs, and align, collaborate, and bring new partners into the fold. The focus is reflected in our agenda, which will provide a platform for council members and community partners from every corner of the state to spotlight their work and share best practices. Thank you to Covered California and their staff for supporting today's California Broadband Council meeting. Ms. Nguyen will you start with roll call and review the meeting housekeeping items?
Good morning, council members and members of the public. In accordance with Government Code 11123.5, the CBC will continue to conduct hybrid teleconference meetings and provide a physical meeting location for the public to view and participate in CBC meetings. Council members, please announce your presence as your name is called. Chief Deputy Director Johnson.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Houck.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Yarbrough.
Here.
Thank you. Deputy Superintendent Nicely.
Here.
Thank you. Chief Deputy Director Kenny.
Here.
Thank you. Undersecretary Hacker.
Here.
Thank you. Ms. McPeak.
Present.
Thank you. Secretary Ross.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Chisholm.
Present.
Thank you. Secretary Snyder Ashtari.
Present.
Thank you. Senator Becker. Mr. Aguayo.
Here.
Thank you. Chief Deputy Director Johnson, we have quorum. And now on to housekeeping items for council members and members of the public. This meeting is being recorded. We will post the recording of this meeting, slides, and transcripts to the Broadband for All portal. Attendees, please note that there is time allocated at the end of the meeting for public comments, either in person, via Zoom, phone, and read-through of public comments sent via email submitted prior to the meeting. Presenters, please cue Ricky and Amanda to advance your slides. Committee members, please use the raise your hand feature on Zoom or raise your hand in person to notify Chief Deputy Director Johnson to call on you to speak. In terms of side-by-side speaker view, when PowerPoints are shared would be the best view when you're watching this remotely. Closed captioning is available on Zoom. And again, please use your hand raise on Zoom or *9 if called in by phone. Chief Deputy Director Johnson, we can begin.
Thank you, Ms. Nguyen. We have a full agenda today, beginning with an executive report by Deputy Director Scott Adams. The Broadband for All updates will include multiple sub-agenda items. You will hear about the progress of the Broadband Action Plan, Middle Mile Broadband Initiative, the California Public Utility Commission's Last Mile programs, and the State Digital Equity Plan. Our member spotlight for this meeting will feature Secretary Karen Ross from California Department of Food and Agriculture, who will speak to ag tech, connectivity, and the future of California agriculture. For today's Community Spotlight, Director of Broadband Services from Riverside County, Tom Mullen, will highlight the Riverside County Tech on Wheels program. Finally, as Ms. Nguyen alluded to earlier, there will be an opportunity for public comments before closing. Would any of the council members like to make brief opening comments before we begin? I'm seeing none. So for our first order of business, let's begin with the executive report. Deputy Director of the Office of Broadband and Digital Literacy, Scott Adams.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. Good morning, council members and members of the public. I'm Scott Adams, Deputy Director of Broadband and Digital Literacy at the California Department of Technology. It's my pleasure to give you a quick update on just some of the work that we've done since our last meeting in April. I think first and foremost, remembering that during the pandemic, the governor issued his broadband executive order, and amongst other things, it directed the California Broadband Council to develop a statewide Broadband for All action plan, which was done in just 4 months during the pandemic. We've taken an opportunity at these meetings to provide updates on those action plan items. We kind of shifted away from that during the digital equity and BEAD planning because a significant number of those action items, 18 out of 24, were completed and are refreshed and modified every year. But there were a number of long-term action items that had some dependencies. So between the last meeting and this one, at the request of the chair, we worked with those action item owners to develop an update for you all today. As the chair mentioned, in an effort to kind of diversify the focus here at the Broadband Council meeting, we've added to the agenda a member spotlight to highlight the other efforts of Broadband Council members. And the tremendous work that they do that's related to or adjacent to Broadband for All. And then lastly, we've been, since the last meeting, there's been a status of change in the Digital Equity Act programs, which, as you know, Assembly Bill 2750 directed the Department of Technology to work with the California Public Utilities Commission, the Broadband Council, and members of the public to develop the Digital Equity Plan. And so that was, there's been a significant change that will potentially impact, that effort, as the chair said. If we go to the next slide, I think, to just give a little more detail in the change of the Digital Equity Act programs, on May 9th of this year, the new federal administration terminated all of the Digital Equity Act programs. So that included the State Digital Equity Capacity Grant Program, which was intended to support states to implement their digital equity plans. This was not California specific. This program was terminated nationally for all states. It does impact California's $70 million state digital equity capacity grant, which was being used to develop a subgrant program and future tranches that were included in that bipartisan federal legislation. Upon receipt of this notification, we did formally suspend our California Digital Equity Program subgrant program, which we had reported out on in April. We were about 2/3 of the way through the application process there. So significant change in potentially the amount of resources we have to implement the work that we've done. Related to that, the Digital Equity Act programs basically included 3 programs: the State Digital Equity Planning Grant, the Capacity Grant, and the Competitive Grant Program. The competitive grant program was really important because it was to provide grants to a number of entities that weren't passed through to the state. They were direct to recipients. And again, this program was terminated nationwide. And just the impact here to California is there were at least 13 grants that were recommended to go to California serving entities, totaling about $130 million. And, would note that California Broadband Council member, the California Emerging Technology Fund was a recipient of one of those grants. So I think, we bring this to you here today not to, to just kind of lean into the fact that while it's a significant change, and we're going to have to kind of tweak and adjust what we're doing, that it's the reality we face right now. And so, Chair, that is my update.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Do any of the council members have any questions about the update? Ms. McPeak.
I just want to comment. Thank you, first of all, Deputy Director Adams. I think in California, we are really ahead of the curve with the governor's executive order and the Broadband for All Action Plan, and a tremendous amount of resources and assets based on the organizations that do have experience, based on the number of departments, agencies that are committed, and the legislature, who is also by law, by their own statutes, having committed to closing the digital divide. It truly takes a lot of resources away that we were counting on and we're going to leverage. And I will tell you, it's been a scramble. Because it was not just in the case of the competitive grant, it was not just the California Emerging Technology Fund. Well, we were asked by many others to be the what was called the authorized representative by NTA. There were 51 other partners in that application. I dare say it was the largest consortium I've ever been a part of, and amazing goodwill. Now, those partners actually are still there and want to do the work. So that's something for us to keep in mind. Of course, we lost ACP a while ago. I know that the Public Utilities Commission continues to work on Lifeline, that we're continuing to see policy discussions in the legislature. And I say that, I just had said to Secretary Ross coming in, we have to just continue to lead in California and find that path forward. I know we can. It takes us all working together, and sometimes I'm just a counselor to everybody else not to panic, at least to our partners. So I appreciate that we have the discipline every quarter, Mr. Chairman, to go through the Broadband for All Action Plan and the Digital Equity Plan that was pursuant to state law, not only the federal opportunity. That still remains, that still can be a North Star. And so I just want to all encourage us to continue on what we started in California before there was a federal program that we can sustain now.
Thank you, Ms. McPeak. I know this remains a policy priority for this administration and for California. And there are so many community-based organizations and so many other opportunities to help move us forward. And it's unfortunate the federal policy changes have affected some of those opportunities, but I do know that Californians will come together and state leaders will come together and help us continue this important work. Are there other questions from members or comments? Any online? Okay, I'm not seeing any, so we will move on. First, I want to welcome back Deputy Director Scott Adams to begin the Broadband for All updates with an overview of the Broadband Action Plan long-term action items. Then Cal OES Branch Manager Steve Yarborough and CPUC Deputy Director for Broadband Maria Ellis will present their respective Broadband Action Plan long-term action item updates. Mr. Adams.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. It's my pleasure again to kind of tee up the Broadband for All action plan, the long-term action plan item updates. As Member McPeak stated, California was ahead of the game since the establishment of the Broadband Council in 2010, the governor's executive order, during the pandemic and the establishment of the action plan. And 2020, really set forth 24 specific items to create an ecosystem or to further expand our ecosystem here in California. Those action items included identifying funding opportunities, working on different policy and process improvements, establishing a network of stakeholders, providing technical assistance, developing the Broadband for All portal. And as we pointed out, over the years, significant progress was made on 18 of the 24 action items where we had listed them as complete and said we were going to keep moving on those. But there were a handful of items that were long-term that had other dependencies, and really happy that the chair reminded us last meeting to come back and provide a status update on those, because those are going to be incredibly important moving forward. And so now I yield to Mr. Yarborough.
Thank you. So on action item number 8, this is for the next generation 911 program that we're running. And this particular action item really focuses in on the fact that 911 is the lifeline where the community can reach out for help, and it's directly tied to the ability to respond and recover from any emergency that might come down the line, whether it be on an individual scale or a large scale. And so one of the ways that we're preparing the communities is by building this system and integrating technology into that system that's of a more contemporary vintage than just the traditional telephone. This will allow, obviously, text to 911, video call to 911, things like that. And so, integrating some of that technology is really where this is aimed at. And the status of the system so far, of what we've built since the last report that we made, is we've established the network and connected to or built the network so that it can connect to all of the public safety answering points in the state of California. So there's on the order of, say, 450 such answering points that serve the entire state. And so far, nearly 23 of those, or actually 23 specifically, have transitioned onto this next gen 911 platform. So the network is there, it can be used. 5% of those answering points have made their way onto that network. And then what that did is it opened up an opportunity for us to be able to sort of evaluate how that transition is going. And so with 5% of them on as a sample size, we're able to learn some things from that. And so in seeing what the experience data told us, what the transition process for an answering point to come on to the next gen 911 system, we learned a few things that we could make it a smoother transition process and probably make it less convoluted for the operators or the dispatchers who are answering those calls, or the people who are operating the answering points themselves. Make it smoother and less complex to join this next gen service platform. So we took the opportunity to sort of pause additional rollout so that we can then retool the transition process to make it easier for the next 95% to transition onto the network. And so that's where it stands right now. Is the system is, the mesh network is laid out there. Transitioning on is the next step. And so in the August time period, we'll be having our next 911 long-range planning committee and the meeting to establish how we're going to make this transition happen. And that's a quarterly meeting that we have where we meet with the key stakeholders and talk to them. And so in response to this action item, that's one of the ways that we're coordinating with the different jurisdictions, by having that quarterly meeting with the people who operate these answering points. In between those quarterly meetings, we also are going out into the field and visiting with them in those jurisdictions, seeing what their experience is like, and mapping out ways that we can smooth that process out. And so that continues. The team is going on the road every month to different areas of the state and learning what we can, figuring out what's still needed and how we can make that smoother and faster. So those are the ways that we're coordinating with the jurisdictions. We have a regular cadence. At this next meeting in August, we're going to be revealing the next stages of the plan and uh, basically starting back up the transition process. So we pressed the pause button, learned some things, retooled how we're going to transition people onto the network. And then now we're getting ready to reveal the plan going forward, and then begin transitioning that next 95% of the answering points onto the system. And so we think that that strategic pause will put us in a position to actually get to the finish line faster than we would ordinarily have gotten there if we just kept going with the way things were happening. And so that's the implementation process and the plan that we have going forward. I think that's all the elements that I wanted to touch on for the council members today. So it ends my update, and with that, I think I'll hand it over to the Deputy Director for Broadband at the Public Utilities Commission, Maria Ellis.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to be here with you all. My name is Maria Ellis, and I am the Director for Broadband Initiatives here at the California Public Utilities Commission. And I'm going to be giving you an update on our work related to the Broadband Action Plan.
I have a question for.
Can you hear me all right? Is there any?
We
Is there-
can.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Miss Ellis, if I may interrupt, there is a question from Miss McPeak.
And I apologize to you, Maria.
No problem.
I'm fascinated by this next generation 911. I do remember dealing with it a while ago. So of the 23 PSAPs that have been brought on board, is there a spectrum of size? Does one of them include the CHP? What are the lessons learned so far?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if CHP is one of them, but they are a spectrum because they've been in different jurisdictions throughout the state. And
Yes.
so we started off sort of with some of what I would call the less complex ones, so that we could learn a little bit with, I would say, less of a risk surface, if you will. You start with one that doesn't have perhaps as many moving parts, and then become increasingly complex as we go along. But in selecting those first ones to come on, part of it was self-selection. And so the different people or operators of those answering points were able to raise their hand and say, I would like to actually go, I'm ready to go. And in our answering point, I think, is in a position to be able to do that. And so some of it involved themselves selecting into that opportunity. And then some of it was selecting for different styles or formats of answering points so that we could get broad feedback into how it goes for one that's small, one that has perhaps only a single jurisdiction, or one that perhaps answers for larger areas. So yes, we're trying to get a diverse batch of feedback in this first tranche of people to come onto the system, so that we can have meaningful changes to the go forward plan, and that way perhaps make it smoother for an answering point of any variety. So I hope that addresses your question.
It does. And the lessons learned?
Yeah, so lessons learned, one of the things was, the vendor community that supports this network was diverse in its own right. And so one of the things we learned was there was an opportunity for improvement if we made that perhaps a little simpler and not as many vendors. And so one of the ways we're going about that is to, put a solicitation out on the street that will adopt one prime vendor that is a statewide prime vendor, and then have one secondary that is also statewide. And so rather than having a patchwork of multiple vendors, we'll end up with just two in that way.
Commissioner Hawk.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow on and really appreciate the update. I know in both our Kohler proceeding, as well as we just opened an OIR yesterday to update communications emergency preparedness and network resiliency programs, that the work we're doing in that regard is going to be critical to making this successful. And we got to hear from some law enforcement, particularly in rural areas, about the need for reliable service in areas to make this effective. And so just close coordination between our agencies. And I was very impressed with the work and the potential of how the next gen 911 is going to be able to work and provide safety for folks. And it just makes it even more critical that we are able to meet our goals under the Broadband for All plan to ensure that we do have those things in place for everyone in California. So
Absolutely. Yeah, it is we can't overstate how critical this particular link in the chain is. And so thank you for that comment.
Thank you. We are embracing the principle of flexibility, as we must do with these many important programs. So there will be an opportunity at the end of Ms. Ellis's update for additional questions. So with that, thank you for allowing us to interrupt your presentation. Deputy Director Ellis, you can continue.
Wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to talk about action item number 9, network resiliency and reliability, which this is a great segue from the previous conversation. So action 9 is about network resiliency and reliability standards. The CPUC implemented critical safety rules, which require wireless and wireline providers to develop comprehensive resiliency strategies, especially during catastrophic disasters. Among these strategies is the requirement for every communications facility located in a tier 2 or a tier 3 high fire threat district to be equipped with 72 hours of backup power. And then other resiliency strategies include, but are not limited to, redundancy, network hardening, and preparedness. And of course, the commissioner just spoke to one of the commission proceedings related to this. The CPUC also works closely with facilities-based providers to monitor their resiliency plans and compliance with backup power requirements. We monitor the reports of service outages and publish reports on network resiliency standards. And then, of course, we have seen our fair share of disasters here in the state of California, unfortunately. And one of our goals here is to ensure that we're continuing to do everything we can to help be as prepared and work with our partners and providers to be as prepared as possible to meet the challenges of reliable communications in a time of crisis. And so from our perspective, this will be continuing ongoing work because in reality, you are never done with this. It's ever evolving, especially as new technology comes on board. And we want to make sure that as climate change has impacts on disasters across the state, we want to, these are important measures to continue to protect Californians. Next slide, please. This action item is about establishing clear standards for consumer protections and provisioning of equitable services by providers. With the legislature, the CPUC modernized the surcharge and collection of surcharge that feeds the the 6 public purpose programs. In May, the commission took action to right-size that amount. May dropped it down to 90 cents from $1.11 to provide these important, to ensure that we're still continuing to collect all of the sufficient amounts, but not over-collecting. This surcharge funds California's, like I said, 6 public purpose programs that provide affordable telephone and internet service for low-income communities, deaf or hearing impaired individuals, rural and underserved customers, schools, libraries, hospitals, and nonprofits. This critical action is a fair distribution of federal universal service funds, while at the same time safeguards the programs that provide connectivity for Californians, schools and libraries. The CPUC also implemented several consumer protection and disaster relief programs to ensure Californians have access to safe, reliable, and affordable utility service. These programs include assistance with bill payments, payment plans for those facing financial hardship, disconnection program, and network resiliency rules mentioned in Action 9. Again, we think that these things are going to be ongoing, especially as we're seeing additional protections being done away with at the federal level in consumer protection. So these become increasingly important. Let me go to the next slide. This action item is to improve the California Lifeline program. The California Lifeline program is foundational program for connectivity in our state. The program serves 1.76 million Californians and over 6,000 foster youths with with discounted communications devices and services through reimbursement of 25 wireline and 16 wireless providers. The program has been adapting to users' needs since its inception. For example, it seems strange, but in an early program improvement, the program was the use of Lifeline discount for mobile handsets. Since those early days, the program has increased its minimum service requirements, which are now offering unlimited voice and text with 6 gigabit of media data. As Sunny McPeak mentioned, in terms of connectivity, the ACP was really important, and it was a pandemic era investment that really did pay dividends. Under consideration by the CPUC now is the ability for participants to have a standalone broadband program to create a process for persons without Social Security number or and to use Lifeline. So these are things that we're all working on, but there are some of these are not yet a reality in terms of a separate standalone program, but that is something that we're working towards. And we're thinking that in terms of possibly having a proposed decision addressing these towards the end of the summer. And next slide, please. Guidance to local and tribal governments. This is the multi-year broadband investments build on years of work provided that have provided expert guidance to tribes, public entities, and new entrants, including, for example, we made 106 awards for $50 million to local agencies and tribes so that they could organize themselves to prepare for infrastructure build-outs. This was part of the SB 156 funds, $50 million for the local agency technical assistance. In addition to that, we have the Tribal Technical Assistance Program that has made an additional 75 awards to tribes. And this is an ongoing program that's annual, and it's funded through the public purpose programs under CAS, the California Advanced Services Fund. And notably, last year, there were updates made to the program that allowed tribes to a higher threshold, meaning it's now up to $250,000 per grant for tribes versus $150,000, and they can come back every year for different work products. And then communications division caseworker teams at the CPUC who conduct ongoing outreach and have technical assistance that is provided to tribes, cities, and joint power authorities. They have they've had over 300 engagements with tribes in California. Next slide, please. And again, we think that action item 17 is really ongoing for us. And then the build out of the California Interactive Map. We have completed this work and have aligned California programs with federal maps so that we are using broadband serviceable locations. It's been a big step going from census blocks to using data sets of all locations in California where fixed broadband internet access is installed. And of course, we know that no data is perfect, but we are getting more and more granular, allowing folks to really understand better the needs in their community. And also, I think what's been helpful is at the federal level, their data has been, they're getting better also at improving some of their data collection. It's still a little opaque about how that is done, but it's still helpful that they're getting more granular, and that's been helpful to the state as well. Licenses are available for service providers, government agencies, nonprofits, and others to develop useful availability data. So the NTIA has published several options for different tiers to access the broadband serviceable data fabric, and FCC, of course, also publishes theirs. You can see these improvements in the California Broadband Interactive Map and our eligibility maps, which was just recently published and is available online now in advance of the October 31st deadline for the California Advanced Services Fund Infrastructure Grant Account. Slide number 7, please. Or sorry, next slide on action 22, excuse me. So this is about, it's very similar to the previous one, which was really speaking about the technical assistance that we've been able to provide to tribal nations here in California. This one is more general about the technical assistance more broadly. And again, we've seen really impactful results coming out of our general technical assistance, either provided through the caseworker team at the CPUC, our broadband caseworkers, and through the local agency technical assistance funding. And we've really met people where they're at in terms of communities where they're at. Some folks in some communities are well down the line and have done lots of the background work to get their to start being prepared to launch deploy networks, and some are really at the beginning of that journey. And what we've tried to do is really provide as much technical assistance based on where they're at and providing the supports and information where possible and advising as possible on their strategies as communities are moving working towards municipal broadband or partnerships with ISPs. This direct assistance at every stage engages the kind of local support that moves these projects forward. And we can see, for example, that many of the applicants that have applied to and been awarded to the federal funding account have gone through either tribal technical assistance or our local agency technical assistance, and all of them have been able to work with our caseworkers. And that is my last slide, but thank you for listening for that long update. I know I spoke quickly because I had a few things to cover, so I thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, first Mr. Adams, Mr. Yarborough, and Deputy Director Ellis for your updates. I think, you know, as Director Bailey Crimmins in our last meeting asked for the broadband action plan updates, the variety of programs from public safety to resiliency and the way that we are supporting local and tribal governments, foster youth, so many Californians that are in need of these services. And it just underscores how California as a state is leaning in and continuing this important work. So I just appreciate those updates and would turn it over to other council members if they have any questions or comments. Ms. McPeak?
You'd be disappointed, Mr. Chair, if I didn't ask something here. So, Maria, thank you again. On action 12, on the lifeline, I just want to make sure I'm understanding that is the proceeding that is rulemaking 2020-02-008. I think we're not hearing you. You may be on mute.
Yes, let me double check on the number because I really want to make sure to give you the right the right reference, but that sounds correct. Or also the commission might have that on the top of their head.
So, and I ask because I find it difficult to follow all the proceedings because we don't have much of a bandwidth to do it. So it's literally, I'm trying to make sure I'm on the same page, because then on the slide, I saw the status and the update are the same. Are they not? To be published at the end of the summer of 2025.
Yes, they are the same because that is what we're working toward. That is that's what's in the works right now, and until that gets resolved and goes through the commission process, there's not much more that we can kind of add to that.
Okay. I only get one more last question, I'm sure, for the tolerance of everybody, which is, do you have a projection of what you think is the possible rate of enrollment I read those to be the same. So I'm
They are the
wanting to,
same.
they are the same. Thank you. Okay. And a subset of this third question is, have I missed a response to the mid-May filing on that ruling, on that rulemaking that I should have known about? If so, that's my bad. You don't think so? Okay, Commissioner, thank you. And then is there in all this work, is there a projection of the rate of enrollment that you are trying to hit with Lifeline? This last week, we were able to run to ground and have the Department of Healthcare Services provide the documentation to the PUC that the number of households that have been eligible for Lifeline since Gwen Moore passed the bill in 1984 is far more than USAC is saying. So that by a lot. I mean, it's 5.8 million was on ACP. And the Department of Healthcare Services actually reports today there are 8.7 million households on Medi-Cal. Everybody on Medi-Cal's always been eligible for Lifeline. We're all sort of settling on the 5.8 million, 2.9 million we were able to enroll. As you heard Maria say, we're at 1.7 after 4 decades. So the question, there's a really important question to be answered, which is what as a state is our expectation for enrollment? I will just share with you, even with the kind of hustle that we did under the umbrella of the California Broadband Council, the best I think we could do, and I just do a straight 20% per year, that it would take 5 years to get to a 5 million mark. But that has implications on the access line fee. So I do want to be informed by the PUC projections on the expected and planned rate of enrollment, because we've got to do a lot better actually for all the low-income households out there.
And Maria, maybe I can start, and then if you want to add. So first, it is rulemaking 2002-008. So I want to confirm that, and you haven't missed anything. I think that the decision Maria referenced, the proposed decision that will be coming out, is addressing the pilot. And I know that there is still a lot of issues, as Maria mentioned, between, the legislation will direct us on sort of going forward some of the issues that you had talked about in far as looking at what we're able to do, and then how we'll conduct outreach once we know what the framing of a revised program is. But I think the pilot, once a proposed decision is out, will be a good starting point while we're working through the legislation. And I agree that we have to look at how to engage. We've got a lot of constraints based on some of the actions at the federal level, and we're continuing to look at what that means for how we can ensure that we're getting the most out of this program, balancing, like you said, the service charges. And so I think there's still a lot of work to do. There's a lot of folks engaged. We're very engaged, and we're looking forward to continuing the discussion on the legislation and getting comments back on this proposed decision, and hope we're putting the best possible program in place that's going to serve as many Californians as we can that are in need of the program.
I greatly appreciate that response, Commissioner Howe. And for the record, when we filed comments, the date for implementation that had been in the legislation was a year earlier. It's now been amended late, so we think the pilot is a great idea. We really want to see that experience come forward to inform implementation, if there is actually any legislation that gets passed and signed.
Yeah, and I don't know,
So,
Maria, if you want to go ahead, Maria. I wanted to see if you wanted to add.
I just kind of going back to the question about anticipation, an estimated, when ACP was open, right, an estimated 3 million people participated out of that, out of the I think roughly 6 million eligible. And so in the first 3 years, we anticipate We're hopeful around 1 million people could be able to participate in the program. And then of course, if depending on how long the program goes for, that it could, we could grow from there. But that is a very back of the envelope rough estimate, around 1 million in the first 3 years.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Director Ellis, Commissioner Hauk, and Sunny. Do we have any additional questions from any members? Anybody online? I'm seeing none, so we will move along. Next, we will move on to Mr. Robert Payne, the Program Director of the Middle Mile Broadband Initiative, or MMBI, to share the significant progress the MMBI team and the broader partners have made implementing this historic project. Mr. Payne.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I am Robert Payne. I'm the Program Director for the Middle Mile Broadband Initiative. I have the privilege today to give an update on what this outstanding team has been accomplishing and able to make sure that the Middle Mile becomes a reality for the residents of California. Very exciting. If we could go to the next slide, please. There's an incredible team comprised of our RFI Squared partners, Caltrans, and CDT that are working diligently with laser focus to make sure that we're able to deliver the network by December 2026. As a evidence of this dedication and progress, as of the end of June, there are 3,961 miles in active implementation across the state. This is half of the network is in active implementation at this time. An additional 900 miles since the beginning of the year in that 3,961, so the 900 is a subset of that, has been put into active implementation as of the beginning of the year. So on pace to keep us moving forward to that December time frame of next year. CDT, along with CPUC, has been working along with the FFA grant awardees to facilitate the interconnectivity. The middle mile is interesting. We all think of it as kind of the linchpin to get back to the internet, but without the last mile, it really is just an interesting exercise in an infrastructure project. So we've been working very closely with the FFA grantee awardees, and we'll talk a little bit about that later on. In addition, I'll be giving an update on the RFI Squared partners. Also brief little bit about the May MMAC that we held to hear back from some of our RFI Squared partners. It's always important to understand directly from them how things are progressing. Summary of some of the changes that resulted from that both Caltrans and CDT are implementing. And then finally, an update on the status of some of our work as we're moving into operations. It's always fascinating to me, at least, that we're building a network, we're planning on the operations, and we're bringing up what would be a very sizable new business all at the same time for the residents of California. If I could have the next slide, please. So I mentioned some of our partners. I'm happy to talk about two of them that have recently come into existence. The first one is the city of Fort Bragg. And you look at the 4 miles and you think, well, 4 miles out of 8,000, that doesn't sound very impressive. But it is super impressive into what it's going to be able to provide into that community on 101. And it shows a real partnership between the state and local jurisdictions, looking at how can we stretch the money that's available as far as humanly possible. So this 4-mile stretch represents not only middle mile, but it's also their last mile initial connection back into the community. So really leveraging the various funding sources. So their funding came from FFA grant. Our funding came from SB 156. And together leveraging to make sure that we're stretching those dollars as far as humanly possible. The other partnership that we've just expanded is with American Dark Fiber. All of our partners have been fantastic. We went out to each of our partners looking for competitive bids for putting in place the 128 repeater huts across the state. As you can imagine, that's a sizable effort and one that we are confident that we're going to be able to get completed on time. Getting the fiber in the ground is important. Getting the huts in place is important. Getting the electronics into them allows us then to be able to start lighting up the network and allow for those last mile connections. If I could have the next slide, please. A program of this size and this complexity is really a marathon. And I know that's an overused phrase, but it really is true in this particular case. And it's really important that we take the time to stop and celebrate some of the milestones as we progress. So on this, you can see a ribbon cutting with the Yurok tribe. The Yurok tribe is providing a 50-mile stretch on 101 as a part of the middle mile. Again, it also represents the starting point of their last mile. So again, leveraging to ensure that we're stretching the dollars as far as possible. Working with the Yurok tribe and Whitetail in particular has been fantastic. They have been great partners, as all of our tribal partners have been. In addition to that, we've got some commercial partners. We had a ribbon cutting as well with Vero on the 101 as well up in the north. So a lot of activity happening up in the north as well as across the rest of the state. And in that ribbon cutting, it represents a key link between the route that's being created by Whitetail and then taking us down and connecting into 299 that goes from the coast over into Reading. So very vital part of the corridor to get us from the Oregon border down to 299 and then inward on the state. If I could have the next slide, please. So I mentioned that we had a special MMAC in May as a result of a request from the committee members. And I'm happy to report out that we got the opportunity to hear from American Dark Fiber, Arcadian, CVIN, Hoopa Valley, Bureau of Streetlights, Sisquotel, and Whitetail. As you can see, quite a mix there, right? Some small telecom partners, as well as LA, which is actually not a telecom, but they take care of all the street lights, but we're taking advantage of running into the same channel that they're doing for running for their street lights. Again, trying to stretch the dollars as much as possible. So it gave us a broad view of the challenges that each of our partners, whether it be one of our smaller partners, no less important, or one of our larger partners, such as Arcadian and CVIN and American Dark Fiber that are doing 1,000+ miles as a part of each of them doing 1,000+ miles. So it was great to hear their insights, their successes, obviously with 4,000 miles in active construction and implementation, a lot of successes happening, but that doesn't mean that there isn't room for improvement. So one of the things that we had the opportunity to do is listen to what is working, what's not working. We've taken back, when I say we, Caltrans and CDT have taken back some improvements that are being put in place. Also, with the expansion of the project plan that we had, we're including more detail around some of the permitting, which is one of the challenging areas for the program. And so being able to track that at a even much lower detail, that's given us the ability to understand where some of the pinch points are so that we keep the project moving forward on pace. And so I believe that with that work that's being done, with the commitment that I see every day from all of our partners, from Caltrans and from CDT, I'm confident that we will continue to move the program forward at rapid pace. What I'd like to do now is bring up a video. This video I think is really good. Our team put together. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. I'm not sure what a video is worth, maybe 10,000 words. Don't know, or more. But this kind of shows how the network is going to light up over time. And so with that, if we could kick off the video, please.
This map represents what the middle mile broadband network looked like in December of 2023. At this time, we were in pre-construction on almost all network miles. As the legend shows, the blue represents pre-construction, orange construction in progress, purple construction completed, and green for being ready to connect or operational. Soon, the timeline will begin moving 1 week ahead, and we will start to see the changes that the network has undergone throughout 2024. In the first quarter of 2024, we start to see some updates from blue to orange to indicate construction starting on both State Route 299 and State Route 395. As the weeks and months continue to go by, the network is slowly growing more and more orange. This represents all of the fiber segments that started construction last year by either Caltrans or one of our various RFI Squared partners. As we reach the end of 2024, over 3,000 miles of the network is in construction as marked by the orange. In 2025, the middle mile broadband network has continued to grow as you see more of the blue turning to orange. We also start to see some segments completing construction as shown in the purple. Now pausing the timeline in July of 2025, this reflects the current state of our network. Half of the network is either in construction or construction completed. As we finish the rest of 2025, the purple continues to expand, and we expect to have almost half the network's fiber miles constructed by the end of the year.
So I am obviously biased, but I think it is a great representation of what the team's been able to accomplish to date and will be accomplishing soon. We also use that tool to help us interlock with the last mile FFA grant recipients to know when various segments are going to be coming online. So it's not only a great presentation tool, it's also a tool that allows us to project out exactly when various segments are going to be available. If I could go to the next slide, please. This is a timeline of the operations look ahead. As I said, we're doing multiple things in parallel, as I mentioned earlier, right? We are doing the implementation, we're bringing up huts. The first of the huts will be delivered and installed this quarter, which is fantastic. And I need to pause a second here. I mentioned American Dark Fiber in relationships to the huts, but our partner at Caltrans is doing all of the hut pre-construction work. And that doesn't sound like a lot of work, but let me tell you, it is a tremendous amount of work to clear the permits, to do the design work, and then to put in place all of the traffic control necessary to bring in a large structure onto Caltrans right away safely and get it placed. So just a big thank you to both American Dark Fiber and to Caltrans for the work they're doing on that, so that the first of those will be going in, as I said, in this quarter. You can also see on there, and I'll talk on the next slide a little bit about pre-sales and talk about why that's important. And you can see that we are still targeting having July of 2026 our operations TPA on board. So not only are we doing all of this work, we are also in the process of a solicitation to bring on board the operator that will be operating the network for us. If I could have the next slide, please. So early revenue generation. And so people are probably thinking, well, this is a state network. Why is revenue important? Well, revenue is important because the network needs to be self-sustaining, right? And anybody that's ever run a business understands that cash flow is kind of an important thing. And we can't wait until the network is complete until we start selling parts of the network to make sure that we've got that cash on hand to operate the network. And so that's what the focus is, really to jumpstart the sustainability of the network. We clearly have a focus on the FFA grantees, tribal nations, as I mentioned, and local governments, but also commercial clients as well, right? The commercial client use of the network is going to be important to bring in revenues to make the network self-sustaining. All of this is going to create a cash reserve that allows us to be ready come July of next year to start operations and pay the TPA operator as they come on board. Next slide, please. This is my last slide. I wanted to talk a little bit about the partnership and the timeline. So on this chart, it's a little difficult to see, but if you zoom in on the legend on your screens, you'll be able to see the various dates and the markings of when the various parts of the network are going to be available to come live for the FFA grantees. Again, I can't thank CPUC enough for all of the work and the partnership that we've had with them, targeting where their various grantees are going to be building for those interconnects, right? Because it's easy to draw a splotch, but knowing within 3 or 4 inches of where their particular vault's going to be to connect into our network is vital and takes a lot of work, as you can imagine. So all of that work is going on, and I'm happy to say that to date, we've been able to meet with the vast majority of FA grantees and been able to align to where they want to connect to the network. With that, I will conclude and turn it back to the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Payne. I will agree with you that a video is worth 10,000 words. I think we talk often about how the Middle Mile Broadband Initiative is the largest in the nation at over 8,000 miles. And again, as you stated today, we talk about 4-mile segments with partners, things of that nature, and it really is hard to visualize what the largest MMBI network in the nation looks like. And I believe that video not only showed us the progress, but showed us the activity that is ongoing in every corner of the state and how important this historic investment is from the administration into this infrastructure project. Thank you very much for also keeping us grounded in the fact that last mile communities and those communities that want to connect to this network are the ultimate measure of success. And building the network is one thing, but serving the Californians that are most in need is really where we want to be. So thank you for that update, and I will turn it over to any other council members for comments or questions. Mr. Hacker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Want to thank Project Director Payne and his team for all their work on this, and I just want to touch on sort of a couple of points that you guys hit. First, recognize what Robert said, that the construction of the Middle Mile network is in itself interesting as an infrastructure project, but it doesn't really get you what you need until you actually connect it to the last mile and turn it on. And that's very true, but I also don't want to trivialize the work that is going into building this network. As the chairman said, this is the largest Middle Mile network project in the country. It's one of the largest telecom projects in the country. It's also one of the largest infrastructure projects in the country, period. Right? It's 8,000 miles of network. It's hundreds of huts, hubs, and related electronics. There's an enormous amount of planning and design and permitting and construction that's going on and going into this project, and so really just can't overstate the amount of work that is going into getting this thing built and getting it done and getting it turned on before the end of 2026. Anytime you're dealing with a very large infrastructure project like that, you're dealing with a ton of complexity. There are a lot of cooks in this kitchen. There's a lot of actors involved here. Just on the state side, we have, or as sort of, I guess, within the project family, as it were, there are 3 large actors, right? You have CDT as project owner, you have Caltrans as one of the primary permitting agencies, and you have the, multiple joint builders. You also have a variety of federal, state, and local permitting entities and agencies who are involved, multiple landowners, tribes, various jurisdictions, and so just the complexity is through the roof. And so really want to commend Robert, you and your team for all the work you guys have been doing. Particularly over the last couple of weeks, we've done an intensive amount of work between the 3 legs of that stool, CDT, Caltrans, and the builders, in order to get folks lined up and coordinated on sort of completing that planning and permitting process that is a necessary input to breaking ground. You mentioned that I think we have all permit applications at least in the sort of through the door now. Now it's about populating those, making sure we have the necessary information to pass muster with state permitting, with federal permitting, and with local permitting, so we can do that as quickly as possible and get shovels in the ground. And so thanks to you and your team and to the Caltrans team and to our joint builders for doing all that work that I think is going to get us on track to start really accelerating the progress that we're seeing and make sure that we hit that end of 2026 goal. So thank you for all your work.
Thank you, Undersecretary Hacker. I would also mention the California State Transportation Agency and the Government Operations Agency are supporting us every step of the way in this important endeavor. So any other members with questions? Commissioner Houck?
I just wanted to add on to that the partnership with the PUC, because our last mile, many of these projects are reliant on the middle mile that you're working on. And I think we've had a really good partnership and coordination, and it's a lot of detailed work getting all of these projects in line. So just want to also echo those comments and recognize the work you're doing and appreciate the great partnership that we've had going forward and will continue.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions? Members online? Okay, no questions online either. So thank you, Mr. Payne, for the update. Next, we will move on to the last mile program updates from Commissioner Houck from the California Public Utilities Commission. CPUC has many last mile grant programs that support last mile connectivity to homes and broadband adoption. She will share the significant progress the CPUC has made so far. Commissioner Houck?
Thank you. You can go to the next slide, please. So this table provides an overview of the broadband-related programs that the CPUC oversees, including our multi-year last mile SB 156 programs. It's a familiar slide to folks that attend these meetings, but just a quick overview. Our Broadband Equity Access and Deployment, or BEAD program. This is a $42 billion national program that the funding was authorized through the Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act, and it's administered by the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, or NTIA. California was allocated $1.86 billion from the federal program. I'm going to give a more in-depth discussion of BEAD a little bit later, and I know Maria Ellis is still online, so I may need her support on some of the questions because everything is moving so quickly on BEAD. But on June 6th, NTI issued a notice that substantially changed the program since we last met, and the BEAD project. I'll be talking about that a little bit later, but that notice has created some challenges for us to make sure that we're able to make the changes needed to continue, and we are working very diligently to do that. The BEAD project application window is currently open, and just yesterday, the Commission approved a decision that basically sets out the process by which we'll comply with the requirements to submit our final proposal to NTIA within the timeframes required by the new notice and meeting those new requirements. And I'll go through that a little bit later, but wanted to note that up front. We also have our California Advanced Services Fund, or CASF. The CASF program includes 6 programs to support a range of community broadband needs, from technical assistance to infrastructure and broadband adoption grants. We've got our infrastructure program, our line extension program, public housing program, consortium program, adoption program, and our tribal technical assistance program. And we recently issued a resolution outlining the budget for the fiscal year, which is available, and the amounts that we have are for the adoption account. It's $30 million for fiscal year 25-26. Consortia is roughly $9.8 million. The line extension program is $1.294 million. The infrastructure account is $60 million. 458,000. Public housing is 30 million, 141,000. Tribal technical assistance is 4.5 million, and the total amount of funding for CASF for 25-26 is 126,211,000. Other programs on the chart include our loan loss reserve program. This program supports public entity bond financing for broadband projects, and we're hoping to have a resolution at our meeting in September is what we're targeting to utilize the funding that's currently available for that program. our federal funding account program supports reliable wireline last mile broadband infrastructure in every county of the state. A limited federal funding account round 2 application window was held last quarter, the May to June quarter, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. The multi-year funding represents comprehensive one-time investments implementing the vision of the broadband, the state's broadband for all policy. And then again, on the next slide, I'm going to talk a little more about this program, and we'll ask that you go to the next slide. So this slide provides an update as to the progress on the most recent round of last mile federal funding applications. Again, this is what we're referring to as round 2. This was the round 2 provided a limited opportunity to submit last mile funding account applications in 6 counties that did not receive awards in round 1. These counties include Calaveras, Contra Costa, Inyo, Monterey, Orange, and Trinity. And there's nearly $200 million available for awards for this second round. And that application window closed in June. And the CPUC received a total of 72 applications in round 2 and more than 5 applications for each of the 6 counties. So that was more than we received in the first round for these 6 counties. 35 of the applications proposed to connect to the state's middle mile broadband network. And then round 2 completed the last phase of the objection process this week when applicants responded to those objections, and our analysts are beginning to review and evaluate the applications now. So we are looking forward to getting the results of round 2 out, and also to future rounds with the additional $550 million, which we're hoping will be allocated to the federal funding account program in the 27-28 state budget. Next slide, please. So this slide highlights some of the groundbreaking events that have taken place since our last Broadband Council meeting in April. The blue symbols on the California map represent groundbreaking events for new construction on last mile projects. And there have been groundbreaking events for new construction of federal funding accounts all the way from Humboldt County and up in the north, the part of the state, all the way down to Los Angeles in the southern part of the state. And the bold blue section headers on the right are last mile grantees whose projects have recently broken ground. And these projects include the California Broadband Alliance and SurfNet, which held an event for its 3-county fiber CASF and federal funding account project in Santa Clara County. In May, the Plumas Sierra Telecommunications celebrated 11 projects in various stages of construction in Plumas County, including some projects now providing service. Vero Fiber Network celebrated a grant middle mile construction and private investment project in Humboldt County just last month in June. And also in June, the Gateway Cities Council of Governments held an event in Compton to celebrate the joint middle mile broadband network and last mile federal funding account project. And finally, we're pleased to highlight the Yurok Telecommunications Corporation middle mile and last mile projects in Humboldt and Del Norte counties. And that was celebrated just recently earlier this month. And I believe Mr. Payne had a picture in his presentation. Next slide. So this slide just has some images from a few of the events that were mentioned. The top one is the red ribbon and scissor cutting for the Gateway Cities Council of Governments and City of Compton ribbon cutting that was last month. And then the image at the bottom left it shows President Reynolds and Deputy Executive Director of Broadband and Communications, Anna Marie Johnson, and our Deputy Director, Maria Ellis, as they attended the Plumas Sierra Telecommunications 11 project celebration. And then finally, the image in the center along the bottom includes Communications Division staff at the CASF and Federal Funding Account joint kickoff with awardee California Broadband Alliance and its partner SurfNet. So we've had tremendous progress and numerous ribbon cuttings over the last several months, which is great to see. So although it wasn't shown on the slide, we'd also like to highlight one more success story in our CASF line extension program. So we recently completed a project that was funded by the line extension program that provides service to low-income farm worker community in San Benito County. And this project now serves 194 households with approximately 740 residents, and 130 of those are school-age children. So we're want to highlight that project. And then next slide, please. And I think this is my last slide, the BEAD program. So the federal NTIA, which is leading the implementation of this program, again, announced some fairly major policy changes in June, on June 6th. And to comply with the restructuring policy notice, the Commission has taken several actions. On June 17th, a ruling was issued by the Commission. As you know, our decisions are made through proceedings, and we've got parties and an administrative law judge. And so we issued a ruling to get party feedback on the new guidance so that we could get that comment as soon as possible. And so we did receive comments that informed the decision that the Commission adopted yesterday on July 24th. That decision modified our initial proposals of Volume 1 and 2, which were adopted in May of 2024 and September of 2024. This decision that we adopted yesterday laid out a path for meeting the 90-day deadline to submit a BEAD final proposal pursuant to the restructuring policy notice. I do want to note that the timelines that were provided in the policy notice it was a little confusing, because initially they granted all applicants 90 days from their 165 days that they were allowed, which would have put us to January to provide a final proposal January 2nd. However, the notice gave 90 days from the June 6th deadline, which gets us to, they've calculated it to September 4th, which actually gave us a month short of our 365 days, which would have been October 2nd. So we have filed a request for a waiver to at least give us at a minimum our October 2nd timeframe. And so we'll report back to that where we are at our next meeting. But we are working very diligently. Our staff are working very hard. And now that we've got the decision voted out yesterday, we're moving forward in accordance with the BEAD restructuring notice. We've revised the program. Our staff are referring to it as BEAD 2.0. And we have reopened a new pre-qualification window and a new application window. So the application, the table on the slide shows the new dates. So the California application pre-qualification window reopened on July 11th and it closed July 17th. The benefit of the bargain round, which was required by the June 6th notice, opened on July 19th and is going to close on August 2nd. And there's updated pre-qualification and project application materials to comply with the policy notice, and that's all available online on our website. Our staff held webinars on July 11th and July 18th to provide overviews of the restructuring policy notice and the restructured BEAD project applications. And for more information, again, please go to our BEAD website at the California Public Utilities Commission website. If you want to sign up to receive updates on BEAD for the most updated information, we don't know if anything is going to change between now and September 4th or October 2nd, but we are working very diligently and continue to update our BEAD website with any new information. I know Maria is also online. There is a tremendous amount of work, including looking at what the new guidance for technology neutral means for our maps and what that means for our application process and the scoring component. So if there's questions, Maria is also here available to answer anything that I can't. So that is our current update. A lot going on. We're moving forward. We've received a lot of successes, and we're managing the challenges as quickly and efficiently as we can.
Thank you, Commissioner Houck, and for also reminding us that flexibility is key, as we've said before. And again, really emphasizing the groundbreaking events and the progress. I think it's just really important to be able to show the progress across the state on all these important programs. So with that, do any council members have any questions or comments about Commissioner Houck's update? We have a question online. I don't see the hand. Who is it?
Oh, hi, this is
Oh, Mary
council
Nicely.
member. Hi, my first broadband council meeting. So I just figured I would jump here at this point as you do the updates on the last mile and middle mile. Thank you all so much for the partnership in these trying times. And in the K-12 sphere, we are definitely in facing some issues here with about $800 to $1 billion at risk for us. But despite that, we do have work continuing on to support our kids in broadband, and want to make sure that we all continue to be updated and work with each other on these things. Just an update on our end around broadband progress. Scenics BIG Year 5 projects did come out, and we approved 13 schools that will be benefiting from new broadband infrastructure. We have 3 more schools that will be targeted for Year 5. The K-12 HSN did receive $10.5 million for infrastructure in 25-26. And we are really interested in where the middle mile opportunities are for our K-12 schools. So would be very interested to hear how we can take advantage of this new connectivity that is taking place. We're just thrilled that E-rate was upheld by the Supreme Court. And then we are also wanting to, have some discussions offline with our other council partners from the CPUC regarding some new, one of our providers gave our school districts 27 days notice on getting their reimbursements by June 30th. And so we'll be talking to our CPUC partners to discuss that and the impacts to CTF. So I just want to jump in. Thank you all for all the great updates. And I'm really excited to be part of the council and in these trying times being partners with you all. So thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Superintendent Nicely. Are there any other comments or questions? Okay, I'm seeing none. So next on our agenda will be an update on the State Digital Equity Plan from Deputy Director Scott Adams. Mr. Adams?
Thank you, Chair Johnson, members of the council. So I'll keep my comments brief. If we could go to the next slide. Obviously, we started at the beginning of the meeting with the bad news about the termination of the Digital Equity Act programs. But as you can see, there's a lot that is not dependent on the federal funding from the government. It really shows the prescience of, the state of California, the administration, this council. Would remind us all that, the action plan, the Broadband for All action plan, really stated at the beginning that access or availability of infrastructure, affordability, and adoption were all critical components of digital equity. And the 3 main goals of the action plan were carried over into the digital equity plan, that basically all Californians have access to high performance broadband at home, schools, libraries, and businesses, that they have access to affordable service and devices, and that they have access to the skills and training they need to enable digital inclusion. So the action plan and the digital equity plan are interwoven. The focus on broadband for all and digital equity is kind of embedded in our state's values, and kind of lives through this council. So wanted to let you know that the Department of Technology and the Office of Broadband and Digital Literacy have been doing scenario planning and analysis of the digital equity plan to see how we can approach implementing the plan in different funding models, whatever form that looks like. Again, wanted to say that we are committed to achieving the goals of broadband for all and digital equity. And I think is both, Miss Peak and Miss Nicely said, there's a lot going on to look forward to. Like there has been some challenging news about resources, but over the years, we've created together collectively a very robust digital equity ecosystem here in California that is a multi-level network of stakeholders from the federal to state to local level, public-private partnerships. We need to continue to leverage that and build and expand it. Continue to leverage these existing investment. You've heard the funding put into the middle mile and the last mile programs at PUC is, multiple that which we've received from the IIJA, and those projects are being implemented and making a difference. So really, I think to shift our focus on leveraging and highlighting those, developing new partnerships, public-private partnerships, bringing in folks that maybe, haven't been participating, looking towards philanthropy in the private sector. And then I think lastly, more than ever, as Ms. Nicely said and Sunny said, continue to coordinate, to collaborate and align and share best and smart practices, and create efficiencies with the resources we have to get the job done. And so that's what we're going to do. And we'll report out next time on, where we're headed on the digital equity plan. So thank you. Chair Johnson, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Adams, and thank you for emphasizing that the
I think we've lost something here for the Zoom folks, the audio or video.
Yeah, I'm hearing the same thing.
Correct.
Yeah,
Me
it's
too.
frozen for me.
Me as well.
I
Okay,
think
we
we're on
are
our
getting back.
own. It's our own personal meeting now. With all of our participants.
Okay.
Okay, I think we are back. We are good. Welcome back, Zoom attendees. We were just hearing from Secretary Ross on a comment on the last update.
No, I just wanted to compliment everyone. It's been a while since I've been able to personally attend meetings. But for me, it's always about starting with a plan. And had we not had the plan and taken advantage of that intense 4-month period during COVID, like who had anything better to do, right? But that plan has given us what we need. And when resources were available, we were able to draw that down. And that plan was also part about creating the partnerships so that our intellectual infrastructure, the partnership infrastructure is there, and we're building on success and lessons learned. And that's a tribute to everyone who's been a part of that. So I just wanted to acknowledge it and say thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McPeak.
Building on Secretary Ross's comments as Scott was talking, I thought it would be worthwhile and important to acknowledge 2 other state agencies who do not sit here, but who've been absolutely critical in doing continued outreach to get online low-income households. And that is the Department of Healthcare Services, who is now on their 3rd round of reaching out to all low-income households or all households enrolled on Medi-Cal. First 2 are around ACP, now they return to affordable offers. And the Department of Social Services, who reaches out to everybody on CalFresh. They have completed their 3rd round. They're actually targeting this fall for a 4th. I've reported before during ACP, it took outreach to 100 households to enroll 1. Today, it takes outreach to more than 1,000 households to enroll 1. It's because it's harder and harder to reach those who have not been reached. This is all thanks actually to the California Public Utilities Commission with a grant for a call center that continues to work with public agencies to do that outreach. There's 6 counties who've done a huge amount of effort, another 10 that are in the pipelines to do it. Last year, all of that effort from these public agencies generated more than 200,000 calls through the Get Connected call center, which are staffed around the clock by CBOs, 70 to 90 people from community-based organizations answering in language and in culture. So that's another kind of significant resource supported by a grant from the Public Utilities Commission. But those two state agencies, who actually say they can't even figure out how to take a grant from us, but in any event, they're great. They continue to do this outreach, and in all of the enrollment efforts, be it ACP, be it Lifeline, those are the two primary ways in which households identify themselves to qualify for those programs. Those departments deserve gold stars.
Thank you, Ms. McPeak, for that important reminder and underscoring how extensive the ecosystem actually is that Mr. Adams mentioned. Are there any other questions or comments? Any online? I am seeing none. So we will move along now, and next on our agenda will be a member spotlight from the California Department of Food and Agriculture, Secretary Karen Ross, on ag tech, connectivity, and the future of California agriculture. Secretary Ross.
Thank you, and thank you for this opportunity to spend a few minutes with you. If I do nothing else today, I hope I make you hungry for lunch. And I do hope that lunch is very indicative of what we do in California, and that is, if you choose to have a salad, here in California, there's a good chance almost 100% of the ingredients came from California. But if you're anywhere across America, there's a good chance more than 50% of those ingredients came from California. That's just a snapshot of what we do. So I'm going to go fast. I do not use PowerPoint anymore. I just talk. So my apologies to whoever's changing the slides, but please get my picture off. Thank you. So I wanted to start with what many people may know, and that is just the power of California agriculture. We're one of the first industries in California when people realized the real gold was what we could grow here. But it's changed a lot because of innovation in science and technology. In the most recent numbers that we have, the value of California agriculture, which was at the end of 2023 at Farmgate, was $59.1 billion. But when you look at value added, that's easily $100 to $150 billion. All starts in the fields. We're also the #1 ag exporter at $25 billion on an annual basis. Our specialty crops are high value, highly desired, and are known for quality as well as food safety and sustainability. I do want to note that we've been #1 ag production state in the United States since records have been kept, which is over 60 years. And when you compare us on a global scale, we're #5 behind China, the United States, India, and Russia. So and Brazil, and Brazil, yes. So we're a big powerhouse, but I think I can show you some ways in which you wouldn't expect that. But just this week, the governor's office put out a reminder of what makes California ag the powerhouse that it is. #1 in Fortune 500 companies, #1 in new business startups, #1 in manufacturing, which includes beverage and food manufacturing, #1 in venture capital funding. We've been #1 in tourism for a long time, entertainment, the life sciences, high tech, and #1 in agriculture. We always get the last line in those press releases. Next slide, please. But it is a very competitive environment. There's a lot of issues going on in agriculture right now, and many people may not recognize just fiscally how challenging it is to stay in ag with some of the changes that we're facing. One is climate and water. We've had prolonged droughts, more frequent droughts. I'm old enough as secretary to have lived through 2 historic droughts. That means I've been in office way too long, and it's time to think about what's on the next horizon. But it's not just water from drought, it's water because we're reconciling our usage to ensure that future generations will have water to grow food. So the implementation of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act is a huge issue right now. We're 10 years into that. Not only are we trying to better manage demand, which has a very close connection to technology, but also understanding, and again, because of technology, with better forecasting and weather and the understanding of our opportunities to draw down water and peak flows when there are flood incidents, and more importantly, deliberately divert that water to farm fields and orchards to recharge our groundwater basins. We're protecting downstream communities from flooding, and we're recharging our groundwater basins at opportune times. When those atmospheric rivers do happen, they're not going to be very often, but it's the technology, the forecasting, the working together across all agencies to know when this is possible to get the maximum benefit and the public safety that goes along with that. But we also have, just with the changing climate for the specialty crops that we grow, we have higher temperatures, we have extreme heat, which is a huge issue for the farm worker community and anyone who works outside, in addition to the livestock and the crops that literally, when you have 14 days in July of over 105-degree weather, tomato processing is like it's melted in the fields. It's not a fun time to be there. So the insects that come with that, all these types of things really demand that we continue to invest in science, technology, and innovation. We also have a very complex regulatory situation to deal with layers of regulations that are happening. One study out of Cal Poly, taking one crop that they've tracked over a 20-year period of time, has shown a 1,300% increase in regulatory compliance costs. Someday, all of our agencies will have databases that can talk to one another and pre-populate some of those reports that are required, but it's just one of the challenges that are being faced by farmers. 6,700 farmers. We've lost over 7,500 farms since the last census was taken 5 years ago. Most of that is to consolidation. What people don't understand, as large farms get larger because of consolidation, efficiencies, and economics, we have 60% of California farms that are less than 100 acres. So our services and understanding of how to keep small farms competitive in business is equally important. They also are embracing technology as a way to help them get through that. Next slide, please. So yes, we do need technology. We do need connectivity. In every field, not just in every garage or barn. It's very, very important. It's interesting when we think of technology in agriculture, we just think of the equipment that we drive by. Oftentimes it's very fancy equipment. Much of it is equipped with GPS, which allows people to plant very precisely, not to waste any resources when it comes to fertilizer or valuable seed or whatever it might be. We also drive by fields and see drones that are being used in increasingly interesting ways to really improve the precision of what we're doing, to make sure that we're minimizing the inputs that we're using, and that it really fits in nicely with our sustainability. What I would suggest the biggest need in connectivity is data, 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 data. It's not, I mean, we're going to be big users of AI technology if we can ever bring all the data that's in a farmer's notebook in their pocket or on a tablet in the truck. But every farmer carries an iPad in their pickup, and being able to make sure that gets back to a central computing place so that they can be like, to all my young students, data analytics is as sexy as anything you can think of when it comes to ag, because we can make better real-time decisions with all the data that we can have, with the type of monitoring that's available. Just what we do on irrigation technology. Many, many farms are operating those systems on their iPhone. They get a call if there's something wrong in one field to really go out there, make sure the water's not being wasted, and get it fixed immediately. So those are the kinds of ways, when I think about connectivity, why it's so important for ag, and it's not just about the hardware. In fact, just this morning in the Sacramento Bee, there was an announcement of Bonsai Robotics merging with a little company called Farm-ing, which is a -ng. And they said it's not just about hardware anymore. It's about this ability to process data, collect it, use it for the smartest decision-making to really make sure that we're productive. But it's much more than just the equipment, the infrastructure, the crops, the seeds, and all those inputs. The most important part of California agriculture are our people. And one of the things that we've been working on for the past few years has been really looking at where the technology and the equipment and the automation is taking us, and making sure that we're investing in workforce development and upskilling our incumbent workforce so people are not left behind in this transition in our economy. So we've had a number of partnerships on specialty crop workforce development. Western Growers, the Agricultural Council of California, UC Ag and Natural Resources, all working on internships and putting on seminars. Western Growers got a grant to develop modules of education for high school students to see all the opportunities that they might not associate with agriculture. And most importantly, based on a survey, an aspirational survey of 12,000 farm workers in the Central Valley, the Central Valley Community Foundation worked together with the employer community of what you identify as needs and the aspirational goals of farm workers to create new modules that are skills-based, competency-based, curriculum development that can be taken on your own time with connectivity or going to a campus to be credentialed and have that ladder up with additional opportunities just within the existing structure of agriculture now. So it's a very important part of what we're doing. There are a number of CBOs in the state that work specifically on farm worker training, and we really want to be able to advance that and use technology and make sure that we all have the connectivity to make it useful for everybody that's part of our food chain. There's a list of partners there. The California Farm Worker Foundation was not listed on that. That's my bad. And the community colleges were not listed on that. That's my bad. I'm looking forward to the day when not just every mile, but every acre has that kind of connectivity. That's a pretty ambitious goal. I think it's possible at some point in time, but for us, it's about the ecosystem of technology that will allow that to happen. Broadband, internet, wireless, satellite technology is increasingly important, especially for large development of equipment that's out in our fields as harvesters that has built-in satellite capabilities on it to capture exactly what's going on as they collect that, and to be able to present specifics on nitrogen use or any pesticide use for the sustainability reporting. And over time, what we can do in measuring our soil and the carbon in our soil to be a part of the solution in climate change, in addition to making sure that every small farmer has all the connectivity they need for more direct to consumer sales, whether it's internet or going farm to school, and being able to take advantage of the huge investment the state has made for healthy eating with our school students so that they can grow up healthy and avoid trillions of dollars in healthcare costs later in life, I think makes agriculture a very exciting place to be. But the issue of connectivity has never been more important as we continue to invest in the development of new innovation to really make us more efficient, more sustainable, and more productive. Thanks for the 12 minutes that I took. I don't know.
I am indeed hungry now. So thank you, Secretary Ross. And it's just an interesting glimpse into, in California, we embrace farm to fork, and interesting glimpse into everything that actually goes into that we don't hear about every day.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for that update. Do any council members have any questions or comments for Secretary Ross?
I just really appreciate the presentation. I think this is something that we need to bring more visibility on, especially as we're looking at opportunities and options to get broadband out to rural and harder to reach areas in the state. So I really appreciate and am very interested in all of the work that's happening in the ag community on.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I did not give enough credit to Jobs First and what's happening with Jobs First and those regional development plans that have also really put new energy and new investment in this. And I want to make sure that I acknowledge that's tremendous opportunities there.
Thank you. Ms. McPeak.
I do want to thank you, Secretary Ross, for being here and acknowledge that Trish Kelly from Valley Vision and Glenda Humiston from the University of California were here at the last Broadband Council. And I appreciate that Commissioner Houck was very interested then. And part of what I think is so important for this presentation is when we all were together at the World Ag Expo in February, the overwhelming comment after 4 hours of a conference and a roundtable from the farmers themselves was the one thing they needed most right now was high-speed internet connectivity. I did not expect that actually from that. That was wrapping up 10 years of our involvement in ag tech. But that means, Commissioner, and those at the PUC who are doing the planning, is actually accelerating the deployment of wireless. Even though we absolutely need the wireline backhaul. You don't put wires into the field, but they need a signal into the field. They literally disc in, of course, the sensors for both water application and fertilizer. So they need that. All of the equipment is being automated. The upskilling of workers so they can learn, currently have $20 jobs, could have 80,000 to $100,000 jobs. We're actually relying more and more on imported ag labor. So I think that may be an opportunity with the new BEAD, if you will, NOFO, and what you're doing is to actually put some emphasis on agriculture, because that would be welcomed by the ag leaders. I have one last question for you, Secretary Ross. Has Cal Ocean made any progress in allowing autonomous tractors that are all out there ready to go?
So a task force has been established by the OSHA Standards Board, and they've held 3 meetings, I think. They're continuing to do that work and looking at um, next steps. It's a process that we need to go through, and looking at how do we get there, just as we did with driverless cars that are on the streets of San Francisco. That didn't happen immediately. They started with the automation was there, putting someone in the car to verify. It evolved over time, and so there is significant progress in the works. But it's a process that we all need to go through, because there are concerns about if this is just displacement as opposed to opportunity to make sure people aren't left behind as we go through this, which is why I'm so passionate about the workforce development for incumbent workforce, as well as who else could be attracted to this field. So it is in process.
Thank you. And we have a hand online from Deputy Superintendent Mary Nicely.
Thank you, Secretary. I oversee the data at the Department of Ed, so very excited to hear that this is something that that is critical to the success of our farming and ag community. Wanted to see if we could add a partner on with all of you in this discussion with the Future Farmers of America, which are our rock star students out there that will be our new folks that if none of you have ever been to one of the FFA conventions, it is incredible, literally like a rock star convention. And the kids put it all on themselves. So would love to see how we connect with our future, the future farmers of America, those kids they are the future of ag for the state of California, and making sure that they are connected in with all of this work that you're doing. But thank you very much for making sure our kids have healthy food in our schools. And California is leading the way on this. And so very, very excited to see the tech part of this being a major driver and continuing for us to be successful in this area.
Thank you for that reminder of FFA. It's always a good day if I can meet those students in the blue jackets, because I grew up in a rural community that was too small to have an FFA chapter. So it's very exciting to see those 100,000 students. If you ever get invited to a convention, go. You will be so energized.
Thank you. And Secretary, I want to make sure if you have, remind everyone of the next Ag Tech Expo and the date of that.
shoot me. No, we are the co-host, the state is, of a global conference called FIRA, which this will be the 4th year. And it's the 2nd year in a row that it will be in Woodland, and it's October 23rd through the 26th. You can see lots of automation there, but there's also many booths that will also have like the irrigation technology, the mapping technology, the track your dairy cow on every bite that she's eating, but every kind of technology you can think of, as well as workshops. And it is open to the public. It's at the Woodland Fairgrounds. So thank you so much for filling in my gaps. I get so excited talking about the food part, I forget my job here.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And final presenter on our agenda today, and thank you, Mr. Mullen, for hanging in there with us. So we have a community spotlight from Riverside County's Director of Broadband Services, Mr. Tom Mullen, on Rivco Connect Tech on Wheels program. Mr. Mullen.
Well, good morning, and thank you all for allowing me to join you from Southern California remotely. We can go to the next slide. What I wanted to talk to you and share with you is really the third leg of our broadband strategy. Obviously, it starts with the infrastructure, it goes with the affordability, and really the adoption component is all things related to digital navigation, digital skills training services. We took an approach last year to stand up a new program here in Riverside County that we've called Tech on Wheels. We've done this in partnership with the American GI Forum, AGIF, CETF, SASH, public relations firm, as well as Guidehouse, and most importantly, our 5th District Supervisor, Stacey Gutierrez, and his fabulous team of staff to roll out Tech on Wheels digital navigation services throughout the 5th Supervisorial District here in Riverside County. Just to set the table, the 5th District represents approximately 500,000 residents across 6 different cities and multiple other unincorporated communities. Geographically, it's a fairly large district. It takes about 45 minutes to drive north-south or east-west across the district. We have built out 2 mobile Tech on Wheels teams that are staffed by an IT technician from our shop here at Riverside County Information Technology, as well as a digital navigator from AGIF. We've paired them together, given them the equipment, and sent them out into the field daily. We have 2 vans, 2 teams that work across the 5th District. Some days they are together, many days they are apart, so we can simply cover more ground. But really what they are doing is meeting with the residents where they are throughout the community, rather than asking them to travel to us for digital navigation services. What we have found, and I'll talk about the services we're providing in a moment, but what we have found in connecting with the community is a tremendous need from seniors, quite frankly, across educational spectrum to income spectrum to work history to really even across the geography of where they live. Seniors have been very responsive to the services that we've been able to provide, and we provide those services at the senior centers located throughout the cities, senior living complexes, HOAs, where we're meeting folks in their community centers or meeting rooms or parks, really wherever we can connect with folks in any group size. We do that. Next slide, please. What we do is provide one-on-one services by and large. We do also do group settings, classes, but really what we have found is, you know, most, well, 95% of our residents have a smartphone and utilize that phone daily for everything, just like everyone else. They're looking to try and find out, well, where are we online? Where are county services? Where are state services? Where are community services? How do they live their lives just as the rest of us do through the technologies that we access on our phones. What we have done is trained our field technicians to sit one-on-one with individuals and answer questions that they have about their device. What are they trying to do today? And that may be different than what they're trying to do tomorrow or yesterday. That one-on-one mobile service has been very impactful for the residents and really has allowed them to learn at their pace, in their language, in their home neighborhood, their community center. It's been a very different set of interactions than trying to conduct a large class in the traditional formats that we've done in the past. What we have learned is that residents are simply more receptive to the training and the assistance when we are talking about their problems, rather than simply presenting a PowerPoint or even an interactive presentation. What we have found is that those presentations or classroom settings spark questions. They are the primers for getting into the real questions and real concerns that the residents have. Our digital navigators are in the field 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. In addition, we attend community events over the weekends or in the evenings. We have built out 2 vans that also have Starlink connectivity, so we're providing mobile-free Wi-Fi service around the vans when we go to an event. We have the ability to, as I've said, do one-on-one services, as well as provide group setting classes around various topics, really running the gamut from how do you stay safe online, what are some tips and tricks to be aware of as you navigate some of the scams that are coming across, whether that's online, in your email, on your text message, whatever those might be. We really focus on information that is impactful for the residents that we're interacting with. We do also have the ability to provide more traditional coursework around productivity tools from Microsoft or Google, your Word, your spreadsheets, your presentation materials. One of the groups that we've worked with through the adult school in Moreno Valley is working with the students who are older adults who are re-entering classes, helping them understand how to use Canvas, which is the instructional tools that the school is utilizing, helping them set up Google accounts so that they can get into the free services for Word documents and spreadsheets and presentations and the like. We have had good success. You can go to the next slide, please. Of addressing the issues that have come forward. This is just a snapshot of the topics that folks have really talked to us about. This is from the first quarter of this year. We've just concluded our second quarter report, and the information is very similar. But it really, all of it goes back to those topics that are very personal to those that we're interacting with. We can go to the next slide. And the feedback has been amazing from the residents. I know it's not a stretch to say, but people like being helped. People are appreciative when you spend the time to sit with them at their pace and answer their questions. Help them understand what it is that we all take for granted sometimes on how to navigate our smartphones, really whether they're Apple or whether they're Android. This program has helped not just with digital navigation, but it has helped with some of the other county services that We as Riverside obviously are responsible for administering. Our Office on Aging has a tablet donation program through a grant that they had received. So we partner with them. So when they go and issue the tablets to the residents, to the seniors that have qualified and have signed up and are the recipients, we set up alongside of them. And so the Office on Aging hands them a tablet, and they turn around and sit down with our digital navigators to set that up so that they can understand how to use that tablet. And then most importantly, what we do is we share that we'll be back. We have set up a regular schedule that allows our teams to have repeat visits to the same location, so that the residents have someone to come back to when that question comes up later, because there's always another question. Overall, the program has been very successful. I want to thank our partners, including CETF, AGIF, Guidehouse, Supervisor Gutierrez, and really the community organizations that we get to work with when we go to visit their home locations. Happy to take any questions, but I recognize where we're at on the time.
Thank you, Mr. Mullen, and thank you for sharing this glimpse into the innovative way Riverside County is supporting the people in your community by providing these important services. Do any of our council members have questions for Mr. Mullen? Ms. McPeak?
I just want to acknowledge the leadership of Tom Mullen and the supervisors in Riverside County. We have been, CETF has been a partner to Riverside County now. We're entering our 4th year. But the Tech on Wheels is really the brainchild of Mr. Mullen and a couple of supervisors. So I wanted to just acknowledge we're happy to be supporting and helpful at this point, including AGF, that is our ongoing partner, and SASH, who is our forever partner in this work. But very little credit goes to CETF on this one.
Thank you, Ms. McPeak. Do any of our members online have questions? See none at this time, so we are going.
Oh, no. I
I'm
just
sorry,
wanted to
Commissioner
thank you
Houck.
for the presentation and highlighting just all the outreach that you're doing and just how important that is and how responsive folks are. So thank you.
Thank you for that. All right, so next we will move on to an important part of our meeting, which is public comment. Ms. Nguyen, will you please provide the public comment guidelines and begin the public comment?
To ensure everyone who wishes to make public comment has the opportunity to do so, we respectfully request 1 person per entity and 2 minutes per person. The order of public comments will be in-person comments, Zoom, or phone comments, and then emailed comments submitted prior to the meeting. For in-person comments, please form a line at the podium. For Zoom, please use the raise hand feature in the lower toolbar, or via phone, please press star 9 to raise your hand. There were no email comments submitted prior to the meeting. So we will start with the first person in line at the podium.
Morning, council members and state partners. My name is Patrick Messick, and I'm the director of Oakland Undivided. We are at a critical crossroads for digital access in the state of California. President Trump canceled the Bay Area's $12 million digital equity competitive grant, calling it, quote, a racist, woke handout. Lead Project 2025 author and current FCC chair Brendan Carr is spearheading the cancellation of the E-rate hotspot program, disconnecting thousands of Oakland's most vulnerable children from the home connectivity they need to learn. Facing this assault on our neighbors and children, communities like ours are counting on you and on one another to navigate these uncertain times. First, we must stay organized. The East Bay region, encompassing Alameda County, Contra Costa, and Solano counties, is one of the only areas in the state without a designated and state-funded regional broadband consortium. The dissolution of the East Bay Broadband Consortium in 2019 left a critical coordination gap, and the PUC hasn't opened an RBC application window since June 1st of 2022. No public guidance has been issued since on when future application windows will be open. We have no time to delay. Reopening the CASF RBC account will ensure that our region is no longer left without a coordinated representation or technical support. We respectfully urge the Commission to commit to reopening an application window by January of 2026. Secondly, we must leverage generational public infrastructure investments. I want to thank CDT for its continued deep partnership and for the significant progress we made towards deploying the statewide middle mile network. It's no trivial feat. In Oakland, this middle mile investment is directly enabling the city's FFA Last Mile project that will connect thousands of residents in our highest poverty neighborhoods with free and low-cost service for years to come. We are deeply grateful. But this not-so-distant future will only be possible if FFA projects like ours can afford to use the middle mile network. If middle mile pricing replicates the private market, Oakland will have miles of state-funded fiber and tens of thousands still left online, priced out by the status quo. This council must grapple with a core question. Will California's middle mile network be priced to generate the highest possible revenue or to enable the highest possible impact? We understand the need for the network to be self-sustaining, but that goal must not come at the cost of the historic investment's intended purpose. FFA projects, many led by municipalities, public agencies, and community providers, are racing to finalize their designs, and we're counting on the state's partnership. I urge the council to join with us in calling on CDT and the third-party administrator to continue deep partnership with FFA Last Mile projects and set pricing in terms of use that unlock the true potential of SB 156, especially for those who have been left out the longest. Thank you.
Chair, I do not see any more in line, so next we will hear comments from Zoom via hands raised. Again, for call in, please press *9. I see here hand raised from Lindsay Skolnick.
Good morning, members of the council. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. My name is Lindsay Skolnick. I am the manager of the California Alliance for Digital Equity, also known as CADE. First, I'd like to thank CDT and the CPUC for providing updates on the Middle Mile Broadband Initiative and Last Mile program. We are pleased to see the progress made towards deploying the state's middle mile network, as well as the various last mile projects, many of which aim to tap into the MMBN to connect historically disadvantaged communities to the internet. However, bringing such connectivity to these communities will only be possible if the middle mile network is affordable. If the network ends up being cost prohibitive, the success of the entire project is at risk. It won't matter if miles of new modern fiber have been deployed across the state. If it's too expensive, there will be little incentive to connect to an open access network and it will be underutilized. This is not what we want to see happen to the state's $3.25 billion investment. Digital equity stakeholders are eager to see this historic project seismically shift California's existing broadband infrastructure landscape for the better. And there's still time to guarantee that MMBN makes such an impact. It's not too late to commit to structuring the MMBN's pricing and terms of use in a way that prioritizes affordability and widespread access. To do this, we urge CDT to share more information with last mile partners about the MMBN's pricing and terms of use and consider their feedback with care regarding what is low cost or competitive access. CADE wants last mile projects to be successful, and that largely depends on MMBN connectivity being affordable. Thank you so much for your consideration of my comments.
Thank you. Chief Deputy Director Johnson, I do not see any more public commenters in line, in the room or online. That ends our public comment session.
Thank you, and thank you, members of the public, for sharing your comments. Before we conclude, I'd like to ask if any of our council members have additional comments that they would like to add. Ms. McPeak?
Mr. Chairman, if my memory serves me right, although I could be wrong, we do have someone in the room who's about to celebrate a birthday, and if I'm wrong, there's always a birthday sometime in the year. But I do think Monday, July 28th, is Deputy Director Adams' birthday. So just a happy birthday to you, Scott. Did I remember correctly, or am I wrong?
You did remember correctly.
Okay.
Thank you.
A little public embarrassment makes every birthday better.
You got to take it where you can get it.
All right, thank you for that. And I want to thank the council members and presenters for their contributions today, and to the members of the public for your thoughtful comments. I'm proud of our collective accomplishments and in this council's unwavering commitment to broadband for all Californians. Our next meeting is scheduled for Friday, October 24th, 2025, starting at 9:30 a.m. at this Covered California facility and online. And thank you again to Covered California for allowing us to hold our event here and for supporting our technical needs. Thank you all.